Hello and welcome to climbingarborist.com. My name is Dan Holiday. In this video you're going to see some London plane tree pollarding.
Hello.
What we're going to see is how we go about pollarding, because to a lot of you watching, you might not really be familiar with the technique and the management practice of pollarding trees. Being from the UK, that's a very common practice. In Canada, we don't come across it that often, but obviously these trees behind me are London plane trees, which are one of the best trees to pollard because they can tolerate it. They heal over well each time. They create, you see these big knuckles, and it's a way to keep trees that in maturity can grow to, you know, like 80, 100 feet tall and 60 feet in spread. It's a way to keep those trees down. You can see at the pollard point, these are probably 18 feet tall, and then they've got another 12, 15 feet of like regrowth that's probably might be 3 years old. So yeah, what we're going to see in this video, we're just going to pollard these trees. I'm going to show you how you basically cut them around the knuckles and then what it looks like once we've finished. So thanks for tuning in. Enjoy. Alright, so we're up in the tree. So you get a really different vantage point from up here. You can see the knuckles close up. So we call these the knuckles, the pollard points, where we're going to take them back to. And you can see that these have been done over and over again. Even though the tree looks fairly small from the ground and the trunk diameter is quite thin, the trees are probably older than you imagine because they've been pollarded various times over and over again. That's indicated by the condition of the pollard points. So the idea when you're pollarding is cut off all the new growth, and then you want to give nice clean cuts to the individual shoots. Get them right down to the knuckles as close as you can, but don't do one large slice cut across the whole top of the knuckle. You want to do each individual shoot as its own thing, which allows the tree to heal over quicker. And then you get a clean knuckle every time, because if you left stubs every time you pollarded, you would just have like this mishmash of a tree canopy with stubs upon stubs upon stubs upon shoots upon stubs upon shoots. Pollarding first started many centuries ago, and it was first used in agricultural lands, rural lands, one as a way to provide wood for fuel, but also wood for furniture and other household items. But also it was used as a way to produce food or fodder for livestock. So yeah, that was many centuries ago. And as the centuries went along, people realized, because of the way that the tree responded, it was a way that you could manage trees in an urban landscape around cities. So it's mainly been used in European cities, streets and parks to line boulevards, and people realized you could make a more uniform shape, so you could manage street trees and keep them. And if you go to places like France, Spain, you can see boulevards of trees in the cities that are like square, that have been styled in certain shapes. So people in the European cities started to do this. It then lost favour a little bit as a way of pruning, but still it is seen as a certain management style for tree pruning, especially in urban environments, to keep trees smaller, to manage their size, to keep the risk of branch failure down. So when you're pollarding, the reason why you get these big knuckles is because if you do it properly, you should only cut off the new shoots. You shouldn't make one big cut to open up a huge wound. It's better to do lots of little cuts, so you're only opening up the wound of that new growth, that 3-year-old growth or whatever it is. And that's why they create the knuckles, because each time there's got all these little bits that heal over, and then it just adds an extra layer every time it gets pruned. But it's the best way to do it, rather than just slicing it and making one new cut. So that's how you do pollarding. You can see down here there's somebody's patio and a bunch of shrubs and stuff, so I'm actually gonna probably hand hold a bunch of this, or do some step cuts, do it by hand, do some hand sawing, and then finish off all the little stubs with the chainsaw, just because I don't want it all dropping and getting tangled through there. So it'll take me longer to do it, but less damage, and I'll be able to throw it all down kind of near the chipper. So when the decision is being made if you should pollard or not, what you need to consider is that once you start pollarding and you're creating all of these shoots coming out of these different branches and limbs and stems, the branches where they connect or where they shoot out of the knuckle are a very, very weak union. So you need to have this done on a regular schedule. Maybe that's every year, maybe that's every 3 years, but the new shoots cannot be just left forgotten about, unpruned for 15-20 years, because they'll become huge stems in their own right, and then once they get to that size, with a bit of wind or a bit of snow load or something like that, they'll just become, they just don't have the natural attachment of a normal branch or stem, because it's unnatural the way that they all shoot out of one area. So they have very, very weak attachment points. So that's why when the decision is being made to pollard as a pruning management style, it needs to be considered that it will need to be done every 2-3 years going forward without fail. Here are a few examples of some pollarded trees. So these are rows of pollarded trees in a park, obviously not offering any shade at the moment, but as you can imagine, when they shoot back they'll be very, very dense canopies, so offering lots of shade. So that's one example. This is another example in a town. This is more of management, so that I presume so that the trees don't get too large, it stunts their growth, they don't start lifting the paving as quickly as they would if they were left to grow full size. Here is another example, a few rows. This looks like it's more well, both as like a visual and aesthetic planting in rows, but also a way to keep the trees from getting absolutely enormous. So this is an example of when the trees have some foliage on. Here's you got some quite large trunks, but with some very short, small canopy. And this is just a shot of some trees that have just started to shoot new growth. What is the best time to pollard a tree or repollard a tree? So the best time would be to do it in winter, or maybe moving into early spring before trees have started to shoot. And the reason for this would be because in the winter the trees are in a dormant state, but they're preparing all their energy to go into growth mode in the spring. So if ever you prune aggressively in the winter or in the spring, you get the most vigorous reaction from a tree, and I'm not talking if you're just pollarding. I'm talking a lot of different types of pruning, especially like canopy reduction pruning. So you'll get the most vigorous reaction if you prune in the winter or the spring, but that's actually beneficial if you're pollarding, because obviously you want the trees to shoot back and with the most vigor. You don't want them to suffer or die off. You want them to respond. So the best way and the best response you will get is if you prune in the winter, or like you could leave it to early spring, maybe March. But yeah, that's the time that I would do it if I wanted to get the best results. So like I've said, pollarding is a management style, and it's a way of pruning to keep trees small, to limit above ground growth, but also limit and stunt the root growth as well. So basically stunt the tree all around by continually keeping it smaller. This is a way to manage trees around urban areas, in close proximity to buildings, that kind of thing. But it is contentious. A lot of people think that you can just, as long as you do regular pruning but more natural ways of pruning, that's a better management style, which I agree in a lot of respects. If you do come across trees that have been pollarded, or if you have your own tree that's being pollarded, then you need to continue to do it from a risk mitigation standpoint. It's also a way of pruning trees to create cool looking sculpture type trees. So say if you have a garden and you plant 2 or 3 small beech trees, plane trees, hornbeam trees, linden trees, any of these kind of trees, willow trees, but then continually manicure them, pollard them to get them into a certain shape and to create a boulevard or a nice walkway. There's a lot you can do with them on a small scale in a garden. So that's another way of using pollarding. Okay, that's it. Myself and Tim have done 5 of these little guys. We just finished. This is the last one, so you can see all the knuckles. I had to change my helmet because the other one didn't have the GoPro mount on. We had like a dead one here, completely died, so we took that one off, and then all the knuckles. So a couple of these trees we did the tops of them, like they're not too great. You see, like it's got like cavities and there's a lot. It's kind of, some of them have a bunch of rot on there, but then I did another one and it all dealt with it pretty good. So but these are only fairly small now we've retopped them, but yeah, like 18 feet tall or so, and they get done like on a maybe every 3-year basis, so 3-4 years. So yeah, that is pollarding. This was a pretty easy one, but yeah, if you're in Europe, especially if you do work for a company that does street trees, you can do like avenues and avenues of pollarding day in, day out. If you work for a company that does the street trees, I actually really like pollarding. It's very therapeutic. It's very satisfying to do all the little cuts and finish off. Also, there's some really cool pollarded avenues of trees, especially in like France. Where they like square them off and they have like avenues of just squared off pollarded trees. So yeah, that is pollarding in a nutshell. Cheers for watching.
Hello.